The much-awaited polling day has begun. Millions of Americans are heading to the polling stations to decide the future of their nation. The race to elect the 47th U.S. president is razor tight, with voters set to make a choice between Democratic Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump. In a final appeal, Harris and Trump made their closing arguments to the American people, highlighting the sharp contrasts in their visions.
With your vote tomorrow, we can fix every single problem our country faces and lead America, indeed the world, to new heights of glory.
The momentum is on our side. Our campaign has tapped into the ambitions, the aspirations, and the dreams of the American people. And we know it is time for a new generation of leadership in America.
Harris has championed abortion rights and promised to lower food and housing costs for working families. Trump, on the other hand, has vowed to secure the border and proposed massive tax cuts to stimulate the economy. Polls show the race as a dead heat, with Trump vowing a triumphant return to the White House, while Harris declared momentum is on their side. Both candidates held last-minute rallies in crucial battleground states, with Harris finishing her campaign in Pennsylvania, rallying in Philadelphia at the iconic Rocky Steps.
Oh, it's good to be back in the city of brotherly love, where the foundation of our democracy was forged. And here at these famous steps, a tribute to those who start as the underdog and climb to victory.
Trump, who at 78 is the oldest nominee ever, closed his campaign in Grand Rapids, Michigan, accompanied by family members, though notably missing was his wife, Melania.
The ball's in our hand. All we have to do is get out the vote tomorrow. You get out the vote, they can't do anything about it, we win. Just so you know, if we show up, they can't win. They can't. They mathematically can't win because they're so far behind.
Voters in the U.S. hamlet of Dixville Notch launched Election Day with a tied vote, mirroring the incredibly close national polls in the White House. Kamala Harris and Donald Trump each got 3 ballots in the tiny community in the northeastern state of New Hampshire. As the undecided voters hold the power to sway critical swing states, their votes will be pivotal in deciding the outcome. These voters, a mix of sporadic voters, disenchanted partisans, and independents, could tip the scales in states like Pennsylvania and Georgia, with over 82 million Americans already having cast early ballots. Turnout is record-breaking as polling stations buzz with activity. The nation holds its breath, knowing that today's decision could fundamentally reshape America's trajectory and send ripples across the global political landscape. VOA correspondent Jessica Stone is in Arlington, Virginia, and WION's correspondent Sidhan Sibul is in Washington, D.C. Great to see you both. Jessica, I see the voting has begun, the process has begun. How can you gauge the turnout so far?
Well, that's more difficult this year because so many people were in the early voting lines. In fact, I was in line on Friday to early vote, and I waited about 20 or 30 minutes. Folks right now here in Arlington, Virginia, they're waiting about 5 or 10 minutes to vote. These polls have been open since 6 a.m., and there was a line of about 60 people that rushed the door when they opened here in Arlington, Virginia. But this is not a battleground state in the same way that states like Pennsylvania are, because that state not only has more electoral votes, it also has much closer margins between the two candidates. Here, we have Harris running about 6 points ahead of Trump. There, that state could well decide the election. And so while there is excitement here in Virginia, particularly because so many people are close followers and parts of policymaking and politics in this country, it is not on the same level of importance as some of the more pronounced and tighter swing states like Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Georgia, Wisconsin, Nevada, Arizona, and Michigan.
Mm-hmm. Jessica, I'll be coming back to you. Sidhan Sibul, how is the turnout so far? How can you gauge the turnout where you are?
Well, I'm here in Washington, D.C., and of course, we will be going to a polling station. It's just around 7:30 a.m. local time, but all in all, we do expect the turnout to gain momentum. The day has just started, as we have been speaking about, but we have been speaking to voters since last 2 or 3 days, not just here in Washington, D.C., but also in Maryland, where, of course, the focus has been local issues and national issues. When it comes to the local issues, schooling is a big issue in the suburbs of Washington, D.C., while nationally, of course, we have been talking about since the morning the immigration issue, the issue related to foreign policy. Voters in Michigan are, of course, very vocal about the Gaza war. That is something that's very important there. But all in all, when it comes to the other key issues, it's the economy that really is the dominating issue, the cost of living. These are the issues that are on the mind of the voters as the voters go to ballot, as millions of Americans are right now voting. And we'll get to know by evening tonight that as to what is the essential direction of who will be the next president, because this is a race which is neck to neck. Nobody exactly knows who will be the winner, and it could take time as well in terms of announcement of the winner as well. Last time in 2020, we know that it took almost 5 days to essentially announce and decide that Joe Biden is the winner, with Pennsylvania being the key state. Before that, of course, the time was shorter, but it's a very divided country, and in a very divided country, of course, there are concerns, especially over protest post the elections come to an end.
Jessica, coming back to you, you did talk about the excitement that is in Arlington, Virginia. What are some of the aspirations or predictions that you've had from Virginians?
Well, this is increasingly a very blue state. So if you look behind me, you can see that there is no Donald Trump sign here at this polling location. Most of these candidates are Democrats, and you can also see that Harris Wells sign. So the excitement here in Northern Virginia is very typical of major urban areas around the country, which are much more Democratic leaning. People here are excited to have an end to the election season. They're very nervous about a return of Donald Trump because many of them work in the city and were impacted by those policies. And then, of course, there are the constituents that are and will vote for Donald Trump, even in Northern Virginia. But the majority of the electorate here is decidedly left-leaning and Democratic.
Siddhan Subal, finally, we did see a huge rise in the minority communities, including the Indian Americans, saying that this time they will make their voice heard in these elections. Have you managed to speak to more people who are on the same view that this will be a decisively very key election for them?
Well, essentially, I have spoken to many people here in Washington and Maryland. The issue, of course, is, as we have been talking about, immigration, unemployment, foreign policy. But it's a very divided voter. You speak to a Trump supporter, he will say that he or she will say that Trump is coming. If you speak to Kamala Harris supporters, they will have their own convincing point, and they will see Kamala Harris coming. So essentially, a very divided society has a very divided view on the candidates. But as you mentioned about Indian American voters, they are in minority but play an important role in terms of the economy of the country. The highest taxpayers of the country are Indian Americans. We've heard a number of Indian American names, including, of course, Kamala Devi Harris, who, of course, is the key the presidential nominee, and she, of course, is trying to do her best to get the Indian American voters. We saw Diwali celebration at the White House, where, of course, Joe Biden pitched her as the candidate for the president, saying that she has the character. And we also have seen Republican candidate Donald Trump trying to woo them by making that famous post on the situation of the Hindus in Bangladesh. That's a very rare comment by a top politician coming from America, and that has been welcomed by the American voters.
All right, that is our correspondent in Washington, D.C., Siddhan Subal, and our VOA correspondent, Jessica Stone, in Arlington, Virginia. Thank you both. For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.